be hosting. Could I request before I begin and introduce my colleagues from the university and the international school, for all of you who are on, can you please remember to off your videos and mute your mics? Please turn off your videos. I still see some participants who have their videos on. Is it possible to just off your videos and just mute your mics? Um, thank you. Thank you. Um, just off your video. So the only people who will be on will be the speakers. Right. We've got about 130 to 50 people so far. We expect a full house today of 250 people joining in our first webinar today on the ABCs of online learning. Let me get straight into it. I'm very mindful of the time that we have, and I really want to maximize the discussions with three experts in the field of online learning. The first, of course, is my colleague from the university, the Department of Education, Associate Professor Dr. Seng. Dr. Soon worked in the online university, the Open University, for many, many years before he joined us early last year. Certainly an expert, very well versed with the area of online learning and online education, and we are delighted to have him with us. He will talk about the different skills and competencies that are required in online education. Next would be my colleague from Help University, Mr. Paul Lau. Mr. Paul Lau is the assistant principal of the secondary, and he oversees the A-levels program at Help International School. Paul has been involved in, he was a maths teacher by training, and he was an author of hands-on experiential learning manual for primary schools. Also very much involved in online education. In the early days, about 2 months ago, he was part of a team that helped set up the online learning system at the international school. And we are delighted to also have him. And finally, Mr. Jamie Speakman. Mr. Jamie is a Apple Distinguished Educator, one of the few in Malaysia. So we are also very privileged to have him join us. Jamie is our innovation learning coordinator at the international school, and he oversees a lot of the learning infrastructure and learning systems in the primary section of the school. And we will be hoping to hear from him how the primary school has been managing with online learning, because that's certainly an area of concern for many parents who have struggled with helping their children transition, especially the young children transition into online learning. Yeah. So again, for those of you who have just come in, can I request that you please turn off your videos? If you're not sure how to do that, please get someone in your house to do that, because I still see some faces on. Your videos are on. Can you please off your videos? And then we can get going straight away. Okay. So without further ado, let me get started. Yeah. Straight off by asking, and let's make this as interactive a session as possible. At the side of the Microsoft Teams, if you look at the left-hand side of your screen, you will see an icon that says chat, right? So if you have any questions as the speakers are delivering their insights into online education, please drop in your questions, and we will ask the questions at the appropriate time. Yeah. So whenever you see something coming on your chat screen, have your chat screen it's on the left-hand side. When you click on it, there will be a section on the right-hand side of your screen for those of you who are not familiar with Microsoft Teams, where you can type in your questions. Yeah, please free to do that so that we can make this as interactive session as possible. So without further ado, let me get on to asking Paul to share with us, the genesis of Help International Schools realignment to online learning. Paul, we had a very short time, isn't it, from the time the MCO was announced um, to the time when we actually had to roll out our online learning at the international school. So maybe you can share with us how how the team in the secondary section of the school handled all the different components of teaching, assessment, feedback, the pastoral issues that obviously are part and parcel of online education. We get a lot of people who are very stressed. How did you and the team at Help International School manage this transition? Maybe you can share with us some ideas and how you actually set up the online learning system at Help International.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jerry. All right. I'm good. Hi. Good morning, everybody. Paul here. I'm the assistant principal from Help International School. I'm just going to share this screen with you, and just very quickly share with you some sharings. All right. So, the talk that I'm having today is virtual learning. I'll call it not the ABCs of virtual learning, like what Dr. Jerry has said, but the DEFs, because I think a lot of us, by coming online, by coming on this platform, you already know some of the ABCs, okay? But I'm going to share with you some practical steps that I have used or the school has used to actually help transition into this virtual learning platform. Now, the first thing I want to highlight actually in this time, with COVID-19 being outspread throughout the world, the how has changed, but not the why. All right. It is unprecedented times. Our world has definitely changed. All right. How we live have changed. How we work have changed. How we teach have changed. All right. But the key is this, in line with this Teachers' Day celebration, a teacher never stops learning. It does not matter if you've been teaching for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we keep learning. Okay. But with this change that's happening, we are all brand new teachers. Even if 30 years of experience, we don't have 30 years of experience teaching online. So we'll all have to find a way because we have to, because that's why we are in this. It's a vocation. All right. And we will continue to find a way to help the students learn. All right. But the thing that I can say is let's do it together. So the first thing that is important is that we need to know our audience. All right. I come from an international school, and sometimes the view is that, these kids, they have all the devices and all the internet connections. It would be very easy for them to learn. To be honest, the challenges are still there. We are also facing a lot of challenge in terms of getting them motivated, getting them engaged. All right. But I know that with the different people that is in the group today, some of you are in public school, some of you have children who have no devices at all. Some, they have a phone that the father uses and is shared among several siblings. Some are at places where there is no internet. All right. So that's a important thing to think about for synchronous or asynchronous learning. If they do not have access to the devices and connectivity, then synchronous learning will be a bit difficult. So you will have to adjust the instructions as to your audience. All right. Now, just a few ground rules, like what Dr. Jerry has asked, what are the things that we have put in place? Because from the day that the MCO was announced to the day that we went on online learning was just a few days. All right. And I think it's something that all of us also faced, because when the announcement was made, the very next day, we had one day of school, and the following day, it was MCO. All right. So a few ground rules that we have set within the school is, number one, every morning, all right, at 8:30 a.m., all the work from all the teachers would be assigned on Google Classroom. So the students know the assignments that they will have to do for that day. All right. The second thing is, in the secondary school, we have kept to the school's timetable. That means when the school day starts, when the school day ends, remains the same. The break and lunches are also the same. So that helps the student to get into some form of normalcy of how do they structure their day. All right. And every day they will have, let's say now it's humanities period. Then you have 1 hour of humanities. Then after that, you have your math teacher coming on for different things. So it will be the different subjects across the week. All right. At the end of every week, what we do is we have a Google Sheet that's shared with all the teachers that we will input all the work that we have given or all the teaching we have done for the week. And that sheet will then be shared with parents so that they could have an overview of what happened within that week. All right. Now, to get started, I don't, there are a lot of apps and there are a lot of platforms that we can see online. In fact, there's so many that, if you just go on YouTube and see how do I best teach online, you will be flooded with thousands of different videos and loads of different ideas. So the one that I'm going to share with you is going to simplify a bit. Jamie later will be sharing a little bit more on different apps and more Changge, apps. So mine is actually very simple. The key that I'm looking at is It's free and it takes minimal requirement. You can run it on an Apple platform or a Microsoft or Android, it does not matter, okay? So I'm going to use Google as my base, all right? So the few apps that I would suggest that we will have is Google Classroom, Google Forms, Google Hangouts, which is actually like a WhatsApp. Now, I know some teachers are, because we are so our desire to get connected with the students is so much that we actually use our WhatsApp with the students, but that would mean we'll be sharing our personal number with them. So Google Hangouts allowed us to actually chat like WhatsApp, communicate like WhatsApp, but we do not have to use our phone numbers. Okay, Google Meets is something like Zoom, Google Calendar, and Google Slides, right? So I'm going to focus on these 4 components of our teaching. How do we teach the knowledge, the skills, and understanding? How do we assess them? How do we give feedback to the students? And what's about the human connection, the pastoral side of education? So the first part is how to teach knowledge, skills, and understanding. The first thing I'm looking at here is in terms of what we are teaching, all right, the syllabus and lesson plans. We must first of all recognize that the syllabus, the lesson plans, the schemes of work that we as teachers are using was not designed for this purpose. It was designed for face-to-face. It was designed for in-classroom teaching, not for online platform. So how can we tweak that? How can we rethink how we can look at the syllabus and lesson plans? Now, when it's teaching to the students, I would highly recommend this thing called Google Classroom. Now, if you look at my slides, I will have a lot of different examples here. Later, you will all be given a copy of this presentation with speaker's notes. In the speaker's notes, you will have links to how to use Google Classroom, how to use Google Meets, how to use Google Zoom, and so on. All right, so that you are able to learn how to use different parts. Okay, so Google Classroom is a platform for me to be able to connect with all my students. All right, so I can teach them through 3 different ways. One, existing contents that are there. I could use YouTube, TED Talks, the textbook itself, page 3 to 5. I could do pre-recorded or prepared things, I could live share it with the students. And another thing is to think about, as I said, how do we relook our schemes of work and our lessons? We can actually make real life links for relevance. With the COVID-19, can we as science teachers move the topics of infections and immune system to be covered at this point? Can I teach math in terms of indices, to the power of 2 to the power 3, your exponential graphs? Can we take the curve that is happening, say, in New York, or in UK, and use that curve of the spread of COVID-19 to teach math? All right. Or how does Dr. Hisham come up with the percentages of people who have recovered from COVID-19 in Malaysia every day? Can we use that? All right. In humanities, I've also taught living on Mars and migration. And art teachers are saying, how do I teach a technical subject like that? I can't paint in front of the students. Well, one of my art teachers actually moved from doing the art to critical thinking through the analyzing of art. All right, so this is an example of one of the tasks that I gave, colonizing Mars. Okay, then how do we assess the students? Again, through Google Classroom. That will be the platform that I would highly recommend that you use as your platform to connect with the students. Through Google Classrooms, I could assign assignments to them. I could give them Google Forms, like multiple choice questions, where they can answer short and long answers, check boxes. I can even set in automatic grading, where I don't have to mark the work, but they get an immediate feedback on the answers that they have given. I could do Google Slides or Kahoot if I want to have a fun quiz and competition. Okay, at the end of this presentation, I will also invite all of you to join a Google Classroom of mine, where you will have an assignment. And if you go through that assignment, you will learn how to use.
Paul, I think we just lost you. Paul, we just lost you. Paul, are you able to get back to us?
Yeah. I'm trying. Can you hear me?
No, not you, Dr. Chan, Paul Lau. Okay, continue, Paul Lau. Can you continue? Paul, Lau?
Yep. Hello. Yes, I'm
Yes.
back.
Okay.
The internet line's not right. Okay, so an important part of giving an assessment, if I assign my student a work, is my ability to give them feedback. All right, so how can I give feedback? Now, with online learning, we can give feedback just like how we do in class as well, although with a different platform. We can do verbally through Meets, all right, or we can do in writing through Google Forms, Slides, and Hangouts. It can be done in class. You can have the whole group together like what we are doing right now, and then you can have a feedback to the whole class, or you can do small groups. This is what I like a lot about Google Hangouts. I actually can add a few students. So if I have only 4 or 5 students who got question 5 wrong, I can actually add this 5 into a small group, somewhat like WhatsApp group, and then I can then call this 5 together. And then when I have this 5 together, I can say, okay, John, look at this question. Then I can share the screen, the work that they have done, and say, how do you think you can do this question in a different way? How can you approach this question in a different way? What do you think? And then Mutu can give his views, and then Ali can give his views, and then that way we can have a small group discussing, and then we can learn from one another. Okay, I can also give individual feedback, like how when I do marking in school, where I could write my points on Google Forms and on comments. All right. Now, a key one here is this. A lot of teachers are saying, but Paul, how do we make sure that, our kids are okay? A lot of them are actually struggling with this. Some of them are having a lot of stress at home. So a few things that we have done in the school is, number one, is we insist on our homeroom registration every morning. Our class teachers meet with the students for 30 minutes on a video call every single morning. All right. Now, what they do there is they can see if any student has been missing classes, and if they do, they will pass that information on to the there is feedback. Someone has to turn off their mic. Sorry. Okay, so that's one of the things that we do. The homeroom teacher is a very, very key person in this whole mix. Second thing is our counselors and the special education needs department at the school. They're a very strong team there. What they have been doing is they have been calling students via Zoom as usual. All their clients to talk about how they are coping with this situation. All right. Also, a very key thing is for teachers to communicate among one another. The homeroom and class teacher is actually a key point here. If a student does not have a device, all right, and we're talking about international school students here. I have students who broke their device or their device malfunctioned during this time and they couldn't find anyone to fix it. So they inform the homeroom teacher, and the homeroom teacher then tells all of us subject teachers. And what we do then is that, okay, now I have to plan, like what I said earlier, know your audience. So I have to plan some of the work to be given to the student to be asynchronous. I cannot expect the child to be in the class for a Zoom call all the time. Okay, subject teachers are giving small group calls for feedback, like what I said just now, as well as classroom discussion for starters. Okay, one of the things that I did during this colonizing Mars series was that I role play at home, and then we were doing this Zoom call, the Google Meet call with the students, and then I was role playing. I was pretending to be a general in the space station, and well, of course, it wasn't very successful, because we don't have all the equipment at home to look like a general. But they had a good laugh. The students had a good laugh, and that started them on a huge round of discussions for that particular topic. So there are little things that we can do as teachers, that it's the small things that we put in, but these are the things that we can actually use to help the students become more excited about the learning as well. All right. Now, this is a sample classroom. If you download the app Google Classroom and you click join a class, key in this code FV3K4GK, all right, you'll be able to access this classroom that I created just for this purpose. I have an assignment there. If you click on that assignment, that would be an example of how a teacher has given an assignment to you. If you follow through with the assignment, you will pick up some ideas and some suggestions on how you can run your class and how you can assign the lessons as well. And then it's also auto-grading. When you submit your answers, you will get your scores as well. All right. Now, before I end, I would just like to bring this. Although this whole period of change has given us a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, so it's also with the students, all right? But sometimes it's also to view it from a different lens of opportunities that it's bringing. Okay, one of the things that we are teaching our students, I mean, people talk about this generation as a strawberry generation, but actually through this thing, we are teaching them resilience, and the best way we are teaching them that is us modeling it. A lot of them are looking at us struggling with online teaching. A lot of them are looking at us as how we are struggling with giving them feedback through this platform. And they are actually seeing that we keep on trying and trying and trying. And that's one way to teach resilience. Okay, we are also getting kids and ourselves familiar with technology. The world ahead of us is going to be tech driven. We need to be able to familiarize with it, and our kids also, so that they are forced to deal with technology. It increased collaboration between teachers. Teachers can share materials, all right? It's about getting creative. It's time for us to experiment. In normal times, you know, we are all rushing with completing syllabus and getting ready for exams and so on. And we don't have time to actually relook how we teach, okay? So get excited and own our teaching, you know, because at this point of time, we can look at what we are teaching and how can we make it the most relevant for the students at this point of time. Okay, and for my parting message, change has always been there. All right, change is constant. We have resisted it sometimes, okay? But now we all are in it together. So let's embrace it and move on together. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Paul. Paul, there's some participants tried your link. Apparently, the code doesn't work. Yeah, so can you just have a quick check to see whether it works? It's FV3K4GK, all small letters and numbers. Just have a check again because some have been trying to get in and they apparently it's not valid. Just have a check and we'll come back to you before the end of the webinar just to see whether the code actually works.
All right,
I think Paul raised some very interesting points, isn't it? It's certainly a couple of issues sometimes we forget about online learning, yeah, that the pastoral issues that are involved in the first 3 months, 3 weeks or a month into online learning, and a lot of teachers as well as students talked about the stress that they were going through, the anxieties that they were going through, and we had to do a few webinars just to talk about how to manage that stress and anxiety. And so certainly the pastoral side of online education is something that we all need to take cognizance of, because that's the one that sometimes is the silent killer. That's not so evident, but you see that, you know, be manifested in different kinds of behaviors. And we wonder why those behaviors happen. And it could be too much of screen time. It's just a different modality of learning. All of that often contributes to the level of stress and anxiety that our students and teachers face. So certainly a very important point, isn't it, Paula? And the idea of really an opportunity now for us, you know, to be creative and try out things. And I mean, the worst that can happen is sometimes like what happens a few minutes ago, technology fails us. You know, we've been trying with Dr. Soon early on this morning to get his thing working. When I call him, he says, I can hear you perfectly, but I said, Dr. Soon, I can't hear you at all. So let's try to get on to Dr. Soon. I hope he's able to log on and hear us, and he's able to connect to us. So we're just going to give it a try because it didn't work during the dry run. And Dr. Soon, so Paul talked about, you know, the different aspects of setting up in the secondary school. And of course, I believe a lot of that can also be easily translated to tertiary education based on your experience in online education. But more importantly, as we are trying, we are experimenting, I guess many lecturers, many teachers wonder, now how can I improve? Yes, I've got the apps. Yes, I've got the learning management system. All of these different institutions and organizations have some kind of learning platform, whether it's Google Classroom, whether it's some internal developed LMS. But other than that infrastructure that's there, what can I, as a lecturer, need? What do I need to keep in mind as I'm preparing to teach online? How do I develop to be an effective online educator? Right? But maybe you can share some of your thoughts based on your experience in the Open University. Dr. Soon, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jerry. Shall I share my presentation slides now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, I shall focus on the skills and competencies of teachers in online learning. So in order for us to excel in online learning, what are the skills and competencies we should have? I have divided these skills and competencies into three general groups. The first one is related to pedagogy. Pedagogy, as all of us know, is a science of teaching and learning. Now, under this pedagogy skill and competencies, we have got four sub areas. The first one will be ICT skills. And I shall explain more about these ICT skills in my next slide. The second aspect related to pedagogy will be teaching competencies, how the teachers can improve on their competencies over time, for example. And the third element of pedagogy is related to this theory of constructivism itself. So basically, when we are talking about the use of technology in online teaching, our children will have got to construct knowledge. So whatever they learn will be knowledge construction. So I will discuss more about that in subsequent slides. And the fourth element related to pedagogy is assessment and evaluation. So in order for us to practice effective pedagogy, there's a need for teachers to be able to assess and evaluate the students' performance well. And the second broad group for skills and competencies is the design and management. It's related to design and management. As what Paul has mentioned earlier in his presentation, he spoke about a need for change itself. So to be effective in online learning, there's a need for us to be able to manage this change very well. And there are certain change principles that we have got to follow for online learning to be effectively implemented. And the second thing related to design and management is instructional design. So we will have got to come up with new resources, and these new resources would require us to use certain instructional designs, and all of these, categorized as systematic instructional design. Thirdly, there's a need for us to provide effective delivery of the content itself. So where are we going to place the resources that we have developed in the proper learning management system or virtual learning environment, and how we are going to do that? And the fourth element in design and management is management of virtual learning. There need to be a dedicated team who is entrusted to manage the virtual learning environment itself.
Dr. Soon, can I just hold you for a while? I believe you have some slides on that. Can you move the slides up so that the audience can actually look at the different slides that you have? We are still on the first slide that you are showing at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the third general group of skills and competencies is related to this area called facilitation. That is how we are going to make things happen.
Dr. Soon, you just froze. Okay. Maybe you can turn off your video, Dr. Soon, so that reception in your home will not be so bad, and we can just at least hear your sound, Dr. Sun.
So online, yes, yeah. Uh, that facilitation should lead to knowledge generation for the teacher to create effective learning communities itself. So in other words, when we are talking about online learning, there's a need for us to have cooperative learning, collaborative learning, and things like that. And the fourth element of facilitation will be motivation. Okay. Okay. Now, in the aspect of pedagogies, in the aspect of pedagogy itself, so the first element is the ICT skills itself. Now, when we talk about ICT skills itself, we can follow the International Society for Technology Education Standards for Teachers. So this ISTE, as what we call it, ISTE has got standards for learners, for students, for teachers, for administrators, for various groups of educators itself. And let us focus on the ICT skills for teachers. Now, under the ISTE standards for teachers, there are seven major aspects. The first one is learner itself. Now, under this learner aspect itself, teachers must know how to be a learner in order to be able to effectively deliver instruction. Now, the second aspect is that the teacher has got to be a leader. Okay, in other words, teachers must be leaders in the classroom. The third aspect will be citizen. Teachers must be great citizens. Okay, and the fourth one is collaborators. In other words, teachers must be able to be successful collaborators with both students and colleagues. And the fifth one is designer. In other words, teachers must understand the learning-oriented environment and must be able to accommodate to the needs of different learners. In other words, different levels of students coming into the class itself. Six, the teacher must be a good facilitator. In other words, the teacher must actively support student achievement. And the seventh aspect is analysis itself. Teachers must learn, teachers must understand and apply data to students' goals. So these are related to the ICT skills under the ISTE standards for teachers. So the teachers must be able to conduct e-learning very well and must be familiar with online pedagogy. So under the pedagogy general grouping itself, we also have got teaching competencies. That is teaching, learning, and implementing the curriculum itself. So all schools will have some sort of formal curriculum. In other words, teachers must be competent in online teaching models. And there are several of them, all of them emphasizing on the need for the constructivist approach itself. Now, in the relation with online teaching models, teachers must be able to create effective learning environment. Also, all these are related with teacher competencies. And the third element under pedagogy, as I have mentioned earlier, is constructivism, which refers to the active construction of knowledge. So there's a need for teacher to be well acquainted with knowledge construction model and to be able to effectively manage online learning. And the fourth aspect under pedagogy will be assessment and evaluation. In other words, teachers must be familiar with formative assessment and evaluation as well as summative assessment and evaluation, which is basically assessment which is carried out at the end of the program itself. So these are the four things related to pedagogy. Then under design and management, as what Paul has said many times, there's a need for change management itself. Now, because we are using technology, there's a need for us to ensure that the technology is accepted by all the teachers who are implementing online learning itself. So how teachers, this refers to how teachers believe that using the online technology would enhance his or her job. So it's very important for teacher to be able to accept this technology itself. So there's such a thing as a technology acceptance model itself. And teacher must also be able to manage time very well. Okay, manage time very well based on the time which is stipulated. Now, under the design and management general skill and competency, there's a need for good instructional design. And as I've said, all refer to the systematic development of instructional materials. And there's a generic model to this. We call this the ADDIE model, the analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation model. So in addition to this particular model, teachers must also know the others model. For example, the Dick and Carry instructional systems design model, okay, and others, Garney's 9 conditions of learning and many others. All these are effective ID model, instructional design models. And in order to implement these instructional design models, teachers must be able to communicate well. So this is linked to the communication models as well. So all these resources developed must be able to be delivered effectively. So there must be some sort of resource management among the teachers. In other words, teachers must be able to produce the necessary learning kit, or sometimes we call it modules, for the teachers to be able to deliver online instruction well itself. So for this, the web has got a lot of resources whereby teachers can refer to, and these are open resources which grant users the right to share, use, and build upon the work they have created. Okay, so there are a lot of resources in the web.
Soon, can you change your slides again? It seems you're stuck again on the second slide. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I am having some problem in moving the slides because of the connectivity issue. Okay, never mind. Okay. So now, the fourth element related to design and management is the management of the virtual learning environment. In other words, there must be a dedicated group who will be entrusted with the system management, like what we have in HELP University itself. And then, as what Paul says, there's a need for us to, to know what is synchronous and what is asynchronous learning itself. There must be a way to record whatever is being taught itself, so that students can, use the resources, the tape recording, for example, or the recording for asynchronous learning, itself. Now, on the area of facilitation itself, it is very important for the teachers to know effective facilitation methods. So this would include, for example,
the slides, Dr. Sun, remove the slide to the. Okay.
Effective facilitation methods itself, and there's a need for the teachers to know cooperative learning. Okay, so it is basically breaking up virtual classroom into small groups so that they can discover new concepts together and help each other learn. So if we are going to use the HELP University virtual learning environment, for example, we can break up the class into smaller groups itself, and then they can have their own discussion, and then later on we can assemble the class together in one big group itself. So this is what we call cooperative learning. And with this, the role of the facilitator and the learner will be very, very important. So each of this particular group, the facilitator and the learner, should have designated tasks. So, and then on the area of facilitation itself, we have got knowledge generation itself. So teachers must be acquainted with how to manage knowledge itself. How to manage knowledge itself. And we need to have learners, in order for the teachers to impart skills itself, they need to impart, for example, higher order thinking skills. So it is imperative, it is important for the learners to be able to deliver higher order thinking skills. So with this, we can follow Bloom's taxonomy. Now, under the area of facilitation itself, there's a need to create learning communities. So we need to know the various principles related to interactivities among learners itself, and there's a need for us to create a good learning management system like what we have in HELP University under our LMS itself. And lastly, in the area of facilitation, there's a need for our learners and our teachers, of course, to be motivated, and there's a need for teachers to be able to sustain motivation, say by using the various motivation theories, for example, intrinsic and extrinsic motivations, and know the various theories, for example, Maslow's theories of hierarchy of needs and things like that. So with this, our learners would be able to learn through motivation via ICT. Okay, so basically that is my overview of skills and competencies that teachers need to know with regard to online learning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soon. Can you unshare your slides at the moment?
Yeah, sure.
So both you and Paul have alluded to the idea, certainly, that even though the medium of learning has changed from face-to-face to a more virtual dimension of learning, there's still a high need to have some kind of interactivity, isn't it, in the learning, in terms of how you design your learning online. In fact, the demand for that, the pressure for that is even greater to make the learning as engaging as possible. Yeah, what is it that we can actually do? Because one of the problems that we realize, or one of the common bits of feedback that we have when we did an evaluation with all three of the international schools that we managed under the help group, I think a common concern that was raised was really in the primary section of the school. So Jamie, this would really be an area for yourself to address. Yeah, how do we help young children learn and manage learning? Because obviously, if you are on site in the classroom, there's a lot of activity that goes on. There's a lot of interaction, engagement that happens. And what we notice is a lot of parents say that, yeah, this is good for older learners, online learning, because the whole concept of independent learning is there. But with younger children, they find that, whether it's kindy or with year 1, year 2, year 3, even up to year 4 at times, children find it very difficult to sit still. From your experience, maybe you can share with us, what is it that your experience in the international school at HELP, in the primary section of the school, what have you done to help address some of these concerns? Jamie, over to you.
Certainly. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen now. All right, so thanks, Dr. Jerry. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've approached distance learning at HIS. And I mean, yeah, we're talking from a primary perspective here as well, but there are certainly some rules and guidelines here that you might be able to apply to a whole school. So I'm going to look at 3 areas. The first is how we communicate. How do we make sure that teachers, parents, and students are all in the loop together? They know what's going on, and they know where they can access materials, resources. Going back to Paul's point he made earlier, how do we keep it simple? How do we make sure that what we put in front of teachers, students, and parents is necessary to and impactful on learning? And then finally, a little brief look at how do we manage well-being during this quite stressful time, which none of us are familiar with. It's all new to us. So in terms of communication, I think what we've done particularly well in primary is we have made sure to set really clear guidelines as to what is expected of teachers, parents, and students. And we've signposted really well to these. And on top of that, we've also adopted very much a listen and learn approach, because we know we won't have the perfect solution right from the word go. So in terms of how we've set guidelines and signposted, we have actually created, using Google Sites, an excellent tool, very easy to use and free, we have created a primary learning portal. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you a quick tour of what we've built and included. So if I can try and, let's try and share my screen here. So hopefully you can see that up there now. So in terms of the homepage, when you land, we wanted to make it welcoming. So we had all of we had the head of primary, Miss Terry, we had all the head of years record a nice welcome message here, just something comforting for the students to be able to refer to. Also on the homepage, to help, you know, create some engagement and some excitement, we've posted up some of the headline activities that are available. So we've got some storytelling competitions here, which you can enter from directly from the portal. We've got some creative writing competitions. And on top of that as well, we've also tried to celebrate the learning, to keep the parents in the loop with what's going on. We've also tried to post up some highlight videos here. So this is from our recent book week, which won't play, which is a shame. In the year groups, we've created a page for each individual year group. And so if we go to the year 3 page here, what we've done here is we've made sure to include any information that students, parents and teachers will find useful for referring back to. So again, there's the welcome message from the head of year. We've made sure that the timetable is very easily accessible, so that parents and students can easily manage their time. We've also put on here a daily overview, and the daily overview is updated every day around about 4 p.m. for the following day's learning. And it basically gives parents and students a place to go where they can look at what is going to be the focus of tomorrow's learning. And that will include links to any drive, any other resources and materials that they might need to use, together with all the timings. So it makes it very easy for everyone to manage their time. In addition to that, we've also added in a choice board, an extension activity area that's tailored to each year group. So if we just jump into this section here. So each year group will have what we've called a home learning choice board, which we have tried to design to be as independent as possible for the student. So to give them activities that they can do without the supervision of parents, to give them time to do their work, which I know many people are having to do from home. We have extension activities for those students who want to push themselves further. And then we also have some STEAM projects, STEAM being more around science and technology, some engineering, some DIY kind of creative projects as well. Finally, if we look towards the end here, we've also got a section on tech help and well-being here, which just helps to support the student and parent, especially if they're not sure of how to do certain things on their iPads. They're able to come here and find a video to guide them through the core apps that we're using. Maybe it'll come back on 1 second. Okay, so that is our primary portal, and we'll be very happy to share a link to that at the end so you can have a look through and play some of the videos. So in terms of listening and learning, the other tool I think Paul referenced as well was Google Forms. The way we've used it is to make sure we're conducting regular surveys with our students, with our teachers and our parents, in order to make informed changes, to make iterative changes. So these might be small changes or large. So to give you an example, parents wanted to be able to print the daily overview so they could actually have it, a hard copy, out on the desk for the child, So we made sure we uploaded a PDF version as well to the portal to make sure parents had that. Parents also wanted some more support, some small group time for their children. So what we began using is similar to how Paul was referring to. We made some small group hangout sessions in the afternoon, which focused more upon reflecting on learning and recapping over anything that they were unfamiliar with from the morning lessons. So moving on to the second section about keeping it simple. So the big problem was, especially from a learning innovation perspective, was I could easily see that it was the risk of getting overwhelmed was very, very easy to see happening. You could look anywhere online and see premium access was granted through COVID-19 lockdown periods. We saw free learning packs, top 10 ways to teach phonics online. It was all very confusing, even for our learning innovation team. We were being swamped by all these resources, and it's really important not to lose that core reason of what we're trying to do, the why we're here. And so what we ended up doing is, as a team, looking at what we felt were the most flexible and powerful tools, which ones were the easiest to use, preferably familiar to staff and students, or ones that they could quickly become familiar with, and very importantly, which ones would impact learning. So we split it into 3 groups. We have lesson delivery, so we're looking at using Zoom, Hangouts, and Google Slides. Content creation, so being an Apple school, apps like Clips and iMovie were very important to help us create those flipped classroom videos so that students could still access content if they weren't able to make the lessons. And we also used something called Explain Everything, which is a premium and paid for app, but it's an excellent whiteboard tool that allows teachers and students to record their understanding or record a lesson and very quickly create very powerful videos that demonstrate learning. Finally, we continued with the work management tools that we've been using. So in primary and preschool, we're using Tapestry and Seesaw, very user-friendly. And on top of that, in upper primary and through secondary, Google Classroom, a very, very, very powerful, free-to-use classroom management tool. So what I want to do now, if I flip away, is I actually want to show you 3 different ways, just to show you an example of how the tools we've chosen can do more than one job. I wanted to show you 3 different ways we're using Google Slides here that might inspire you to try in your own classrooms. Okay, so the first one I've got here is actually making a student workbook. So once you've created your teachers have created their slides that they want to deliver to the students, rather than it just being one way, what we like to do is we actually like to make a copy of these slides. And what we then do is we take away some of the information that's in the slides. And this enables us then to add in activities. So as students are participating in the presentation, they're able to actually actively able to practice what it is you are trying to teach. So here, they might just simply have to fill in a table. Okay. It may be that you want them to use a word bank to fill in a space. Or you may just want them to do something like moving some green boxes and match them to the definition. Okay, so that's one way. So actually making it a bit more active for the students. So as they're following along, that they have something to do actively whilst they're listening to you teach. The next one is actually creating a classroom workbook. So here I've got an example here from a potential English lesson, a guided reading lesson, where we're looking at analyzing a book cover. So I would set up my first slide to introduce the learning objective and to give some thinking questions to help guide the student if they need to come back to it. And and then some simple instructions as to what they need to do in this task. And then what I would do is I would make a template for each student. So this template here, we've got a very simple table with a demonstration here and the book cover here. So all you would need to do is go to the top here and change that to the student's name. You could then make a duplicate copy for all the members of the same classroom. Okay, so if you had 20 students, you would make 20 copies, and all you would need to do is change the name of the student at the top here. Once you've done that, you'll then be able to get a shareable link for these slides, which you can then put onto whether it's Google Classroom or Seesaw, whichever platform you're using to share your work. Just share that link, share the get link, and all the students will be able to access it at the same time. Now, what this does is it opens up the opportunity to have peer assessment. The teacher can actually see live how individual students are interacting with the slides at the same time. And you can do things like leave a comment as well. So you can actually, the teacher can very easily on individual slide, actually just leave a comment. And if you start with the @ and type in the student name, you can actually get a notification sent to them by email of what it is you want them to, what feedback you actually have for them, especially if it's a follow-up task. So the final one I want to show you is just how we use it as an interactive book. So we had our book week earlier on this year, in April, and obviously we had planned for it to be offline with lots of storytelling from the teachers. However, we didn't want to lose that just because we've gone to an online learning platform. So what we did is we asked our teachers to continue to read their book and record a video. And what we did is we actually then collected all of these into a library, an interactive library. So students and parents could look for a book that they would be engaged in looking to read. They could then click on the book, and it would take them to the appropriate page in the slide where they could actually then watch a video of their teachers reading the book back to them. So this was a way of us being able to bring ourselves into their home classroom. Okay. In terms of professional development, this was a very important part of the learning innovation role. And again, kind of without wanting to overwhelm our teachers, we decided on a bite-sized approach. So we composed what we called tech tip emails, which we started in the same way. So teachers could easily search their inbox for tech tips, and they would get all of the relevant emails there. We made sure that our videos were around 1 to 2 minutes in length, only using those apps that we'd identified earlier, unless for a very special reason. And we made sure our tools, our training videos would impact learning. So I've got a quick example here. Hopefully it plays. This is an example of one of our teachers in year 2 who has watched our videos, our training videos, and has come up with her own using Explain Everything to introduce a topic.
So we've been using the words 3D shape and solid because we've learned that a 3D shape is a solid shape, a shape that we can pick up. Flat face, edge, and corner, and we've been using these words here to describe 3D shapes. And the word figure.
So this is an example of a video that was pre-recorded and was able to share with her year 2 class. She was able to put in a front-facing camera so that students could still see her deliver the lesson. So it's just things like this that have really helped the team, especially in lower primary, deliver some really good learning that the students can connect with. Finally, what we try to avoid as well here is knee-jerk changes. So when you try something new, it's always tempting to try something new if it doesn't seem to be working perfectly or a problem is raised. So it's really important to make informed and rational decisions based on data or experts wherever possible. So to give an example here, before the MCO, we decided that Zoom would be the platform we would use in order to deliver live lessons. It has a lot of features in there which help with classroom management, and the free package was more than suitable for our primary teachers. I'm sure some of you saw in early April security concerns that were raised about Zoom bombing, about people entering Zoom meetings, strangers who would come in and compromise the security of the Zoom session. So a lot of Singapore actually banned access to Zoom. There were schools around Asia where it was stopped, and a lot of schools shifted to another video package, another video conference tool, which caused a lot of unrest. So what we did instead is we actually investigated what is actually happening here. So we found some expert advice and discovered that it was actually just down to teachers being unaware of the security settings that were available on Zoom, using things like waiting rooms and passwords. So we quickly put together a training pack, shared this with teachers and made sure that they all had read through it. And lo and behold, we were able to continue without disrupting the students and parents with a new platform. And we've made sure to really lock down our security in terms of the online learning, which obviously as a within early primary in particular is something we really want to protect. So finally, I'm just going to talk briefly about well-being challenges and how we've addressed them. So the first is how we've used a flexible timetable. Second is managing screen time. And third, looking at how we continue to celebrate success even if we're not in the classroom. So in terms of our flexible timetable, we decided to split our day in half. And in the mornings, up until around lunchtime, that is where we would focus our efforts on the core subjects, English and maths, Mandarin and Bahasa. And some of these would be composed of live lessons with Zoom, some of them would be pre-recorded, but we would make sure to factor in 15-minute break minimum between sessions. So at no point would a child be sat in front of their iPad for longer than half an hour before a break of at least 15 minutes. And then in the afternoons, we focused it more on a flexible approach. So students were able to pick an activity that they wanted to do. And these activities were designed to be as offline as possible, to avoid using screens wherever we could. And they were also designed to be relatively independent so that parents were free to carry on with their daily jobs. So as an example, we put together a STEAM project pack. Now, these were hands-on projects. We would tailor them to each of the year groups. And all of these would be doable using simple materials that you could find around your home. We also, so that they were relevant and authentic, we also linked them to the IPC topics. And IPC is the International Primary Curriculum, how we teach subjects like science, history, and humanities. We linked them to those IPC topics. So here's an example from year 5. Their IPC topic was water for everyone. And so we, obviously with COVID-19 and hygiene, we came up with we found a project online which looked at how to make an automated washing station. So you can see here, you've got resource lists. We have extension questions to further learning and discussion with the parent and the child. And we also tried to include instructional videos wherever we could to help students. So here's an example of student work that was submitted to us, showing their finished products and how they made them. These are all student-made videos as well. This is ones they produced at home on their own. For parents as well who are unfamiliar with digital citizenship and helping to manage time on the iPads, we made sure to create simple guides on how to check internet search histories, and also how to use tools such as Apple's Screen Time, which tracks how much a person spends on their device and their behaviors on it. We also showed them how to actually change things like app limits and setting down times, so that they had a bit more control and felt like they were managing their child's use of devices through the MCO period. And then we felt it was also important to continue celebrating student work. So this is where clips and iMovie has been essential. So here's an example very quickly of a book week video that we've made from one of the days from our events and the student work that they've created. So we stitched these together. Basically, we asked homeroom teachers to make sure that all the content that students had submitted was easily accessible, so that when we could download these at the end of the day and stitch them together. And what we would then do is share these videos, as you saw on the portal. Homeroom teachers can share these videos at the start of the day to help inspire and motivate the children to actually go away in the afternoons and try some of these challenges themselves. And we've also been able to share these via the weekly newsletter as well, to just as another way of kind of raising the attention of what's happening at home to parents. So yeah, that's in summary, basically how we're approaching from a tech perspective, how we've approached distance learning for primary school.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I really found that very fascinating, and certainly very encouraging to see the work of our young learners in the school. I think sometimes we forget, even as parents, how much actually goes in the preparation of a lesson, isn't it? The online lesson really takes a lot more time, energy, effort to really put together a 40-minute slot even, so that learning is engaging, is interactive. There's some element of independent learning is differentiated. All of those things that we don't realize we need to be doing anyway in the face-to-face classroom, but at the same time, doing it online, can be a lot more challenging, especially for those who don't have a lot of digital skills, right? Not so digitally literate. So that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. I mean, I was fascinated, it just seems that there was such an ease that you had creating those sort of lessons, even the year 2 teacher, talking about shapes, etc. But how do you help teachers who literally don't even know where to begin? I mean, the concepts are there. We need to make it interactive. Dr. Sun talked about those skills that need to be there, the facilitative skills and the technological skills. So the ideas are there, but I know that many teachers that I speak to struggle to even know where to start to develop those digital skills to be able to put together a class, a 40-minute class, or even a 20-minute class for that matter. Yeah. From your experience as a the learning innovation coordinator and Apple Distinguished Educator, how do you help us? How can you help us work through that? What's the building block of that process?
So I think we have the advantage of this has been a 4 or 5 year journey already for us in being an Apple Distinguished School. So we already had that. The tech practice embedded there. So we were quite fortunate in that respect. But I think it's really important as a coach is just to remember that the teachers, we must trust the teachers. They know how to do their job. They know how to deliver a good lesson. And as I was saying before, it's very easy. It may look to us non-digital natives really intimidating how to create these screen recorded videos. but they are actually very simple steps. And if you've got someone, if you can find someone in your school who is a tech advocate, who is someone that is willing to experiment and take the risks, and actually leverage them, and actually, you know, encourage them to take the risk for us, break it down into these simple steps, these 1 or 2 minute videos that teachers have responded to so well, and I've been absolutely blown away by how well teachers have taken on board their own self-directed PD, and yeah, there's no, it's really just that, it's trying to take the fear out of the technology, because there really is no need for it. It's very, very straightforward if you break it down and trust the teachers to do their teaching.
So basically, finding someone in the school or creating such a unit in the school, isn't it? Someone who is a bit more digitally literate, and
yeah,
one of the things I remember someone in the school sharing with me how they actually, you know, set up the whole Apple system is that you need to have people who are passionate. Yeah, learning is something, you know, that you cannot force people to do. You have to be passionate to explore, to try, to experiment, and they are the ones that eventually then form the basis of that innovation team, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Eventually at HIS, yeah. So thank you so much for that. I've got a couple of questions here from the audience here. One was from Samuel Go. And the question is, how do you handle students tackling maths questions using calculators or similar apps online? Samuel, if you are there, do you want to elaborate on this question a little bit? Samuel, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the question comes from, I've been using Google Classrooms, and I've been assigning work, and I realized that my students suddenly are getting perfect scores, and it's very suspicious.
Okay, that's what you mean, who are doing this, right?
Yes, yes. So it's a matter of trust, I understand, but it's also how do we circumvent their ability to do things like this, or how do we tackle it? Like, I don't know how. It's just something that I'm struggling with. I'm just asking. Yeah.
Paul or Jamie, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so I mean, what I would suggest there, I mean, the way I've approached it is just gathering evidence of their working. So what I would suggest there is perhaps as a teacher, create a very simple Google slide template or even Google form, and ask the students to submit their final answer, but also a photo of their actual workings. So just so that you can see the steps of how they've done it. So maybe break down, you know, maybe they have to do a little bit more in terms of breaking down the steps even more than they would do in the regular classroom, but have them then take a picture of it. So then at least it's never going to be perfect, unfortunately, because you're not there next to them, but at least then you can see, okay, you've got the steps written down and I can see how you arrived at your answer. So get that journey, capture the journey.
Paul, you had a point on assessment. How about you?
Yeah, I would agree with what Jamie has said about having the steps shown. I think also it's important for us to relook the kind of questions that we have. If it's a very straightforward kind of questions, I mean, the students nowadays, they will use their calculators. I mean, there will be some who will be honest, but I think most of them want to get the right answer. I think it's about relooking our questions and not giving so straightforward questions. That they need to requires them to think a little bit more and then have a process to go to the answer. So they can't just key in 2 numbers on the calculator and then they get the value up.
Yeah, and then I mean, coming back to what you mentioned, Jamie, about documenting the process, taking a photo. That's exactly what my son actually has to do for his online exam, second year engineering exam in UNSW in Australia. They only have a 2-hour, it's a 2-hour maths paper, engineering maths paper. And, you give your answers, but you must be able to take a photograph of that working and then submit that. Yeah, so I think that's one way of certainly assessing it for any kind of online assessments and exams, that you want to just make sure that the student has done the work and not, really taken the easy way out of just copy pasting from a solution online. Yeah. There's another question. This is from Mr. Ko Chung Wei. And I don't know whether it is clear, the question, and if Chung Wei is there, you might want to ask this and clarify this a bit. So one of the problems he says he faces, one of the problems I face is that some students tend to skip the contents and dive into the tasks. Their responses to the tasks clearly show they did not engage with the contents. And he says, by the way, I've created contents of Google Slide and YouTube video. Is that clear enough, the question for you? Yeah, that that students just assume a lot of things, especially if it's a lot of video, and then go right to the end. Okay, what is it that you want me to do, without really listening to the whole lot of videos. I think many of us are also guilty of that. How do we address that?
I think this is an issue not only with our students, but actually with the entire generation. Like what Dr. Jerry is saying about how we are the Maggie Me generation. We want things instant. A 15-minute video, we'll take 3 minutes to watch it. We'll just get to the key points. And I think actually when we were in school, the students also did the same thing. We could have a video on in class and they could have zoned out and come back. We could have asked them to read page 3 to 5, and then you just look at the key points and then they move on. I think it's important for us to then look at then in our assessment, when we do get the answers from them, the feedback that we give to them, and then expecting them to resubmit their work. All right, one of the features that I've put on my Google Forms and also Google Slides is the ability for them to resubmit the work. So sometimes I have students with incomplete work or that they have not given enough thought through it. I will put feedback and comments on my Google slide. I will give them a lower score and say you have an opportunity to increase your score by resubmitting it. And then a lot of times they do come back and then I get a better piece of work.
And I would say from a practical perspective as well, to help, obviously we know there's a 30-second attention span when it comes to these sort of video content. So if you do have a 5 or 10-minute video that you're shared, when you're designing your questions, I know it's a bit of extra work, but I would put in a timestamp. So write the question and then provide maybe in brackets the time within the time period in the video where they can actually refer to get that content, if that's possible. And then at least they can jump in surgically into the right part of the video, and it's kind of like flipping through a textbook. You wouldn't ask them to read 10 pages of a textbook and then answer all the questions. You might ask them to refer to page 3 first, refer to page 7 now. So try to do that, give them those same signposts when you're designing your questions.
Jimmy, you mentioned something about flexible afternoons. So under the section on well-being, and you talked about different kinds of projects that students can do on your own, and you listed out some STEM projects, isn't it? So even for every year level, so year 1, year 2, etc. There's a question here that somehow I think also links to that, and this is from J.H. Yap. For working parents of really young children who cannot supervise their virtual learning, how do you support or manage the child? So connected with that question is that how do you know when you put up those projects online for a year 1, year 2 child, that child actually knows what to do to go online? Because even in Help International, they don't have the one-to-one iPad, right? And a lot of the times you do need some adult to supervise them when they are working. So how have you been able to circumvent that or monitor to see that they are actually doing the work? Because the whole point of that is to give some free time to parents, isn't it? So that parents are able to manage their own work. Would you like to address that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really challenging one, and all we can, I think in a way you almost have to accept that you won't be able to perfectly monitor the child. You have to, at some point, you have to say, I've done all I can. But in terms of what you can do, what we've done on our portal is make sure we put up really clearly labeled and easily downloadable packs, so that if parents, for example, just want their child to spend an hour doing some maths and English exercises, those resources are there that the parent can can download and print out very quickly, and then direct their child towards these. And these work packs tend to consolidate what was learned in the morning. So try not to make it new knowledge, don't make it new learning, always make it kind of consolidatory learning if you can. With regards to the STEAM projects, I think what I would suggest is maybe what we did with parents in year 1 and 2 is we actually gave them a list of things, a list of equipment that they should have available to the child in kind of a workspace area to set up that learning environment. So, a pair of safe scissors, a pair of, some coloring pencils, perhaps a ruler, plenty of paper and things like that. And so when they came to the choice board, if they wanted to look at some of the more creative activities, they could actually then, they knew at least that they had the station set up and that was where to go. So I think it's about directing parents there in terms of being a kind of a part-time learning teacher assistant, just to kind of put those things in place to encourage that independent learning. But it is a challenge.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that a little bit. I certainly like the idea of setting up a learning space at home, because also then you can always keep an eye on what the child is doing and monitor screen time and so forth, that the child is actually doing what he's supposed to be doing and not going off somewhere online. But connected with that is the idea that you can actually then also think about the time you spend with your child. It's a very privileged time. I know a lot of parents, you say, I've got my own work, etc. And it's so difficult to be journeying with my children at this time. Well, I'm also loaded, and sometimes having those conversations with our colleagues in the office, to have a bit more flexible work hour in the workplace. And if this is going to be the new normal, that's how it's going to be, right? That the children's learning cannot stop, even as my work also cannot stop. But and to look therefore at those moments when I can journey with my child as a very privileged moment, because I know that in the early years my wife and I found it very, very challenging to be working outside and wondering what is happening to the child at home, whether they're actually learning, when they come back from school, what's going on. And in the night when we are so tired and we have to sit with them with the homework, etc. Now we're actually there. A story that I'm often reminded of is the story of John Piaget, the person who came up with, Bloom's the cognitive model of development. Right? So he was one of those people that, came up with a developmental theory on cognitive development. And when you read the story of Piaget, how he actually came up with this model was really observing his children. The children were his subjects in his experiment, looking at them, a longitudinal study over the years and corroborating with, other bits of data that he had. And so it's a really privileged time that we have as parents to look at how our children are developing and they are growing and they are learning. And those 3 months that we have now, the opportunity to bond with them will never come back again when things come back to some sense of normalcy after this. And we will look back and wish I could have spent more time with them. So really it is a challenging thing, no doubt. But I also want to look at a positive side of it. To see, how parents can also look at it as not as a chore or a challenge, but really as a privileged time in our lives where we can actually learn with our children. I'm mindful there are other questions that are there, but I'm also mindful of the time, and we've just got maybe time to address one more question. And this is on the issue of synchronous and asynchronous learning. And so, hence most of my online lessons are asynchronous. And this is following up from the earlier question. Most of my students have a problem of the computer usage because they have to share among their siblings, right? And her comment was, most of my online lessons are asynchronous so that they can participate at their own time. For my synchronous lessons, they are recorded and the link then is shared with the rest of the classroom. Yeah, the rest of the class for those who couldn't participate at that same time. I guess that's also what we do, isn't it? Exactly what we do, isn't it? Both in the university as well as in the international school, so that learning is never lost. Learning time is never lost. People can come in at any one time. Yeah. Your comments on this? Any other comments on this?
I think it's a very good question and very practical question because many families do not have the luxury of having several devices. And also, back to what Dr. Gerard was saying just now about how parents who are working, and right now my boss is having a face-to-face call with me, and then my child wants to use a device for a lesson. I can't do that, with them. So actually, a lot of the content, if you make sure that you have an asynchronous platform for them, it allows the parents to actually schedule their time. I have 3 kids at home, and the second one actually is in preschool. She can't read on her own. So what I do is actually, when the work is shared, I would do it with her in the evening after I'm done with my lessons and in my school.
I'm also wondering if there are students who have, we have students who are in slightly more disadvantaged situations than others. So whether it's possible to actually identify groups of these students, you're able to perhaps organize those follow-up sessions with them, just to kind of perhaps find a time which is convenient, just to tackle those guys. Maybe it's only once a week, but just so that they can have some dedicated time with you to make sure that they've gone through at least some of the key content that you've shared that week.
Yeah, certainly. So on behalf of everyone, thank the 3 of you, Dr. Soon, Mr. Paul Lau from HIS, and Mr. Jamie Speakman from HIS. And before I end, just a quick announcement that earlier on we had put up some links for you on from the marketing department. If you have any follow-up questions, if there's anything that you like to contact our marketing department on, in terms of courses that we offer, whether in education or in psychology or in business, etc. There's a link that was given early on in the chat. Please have a look at that. There's also a link for the Centre for British Education for A-levels, University of London and the University of Derby courses. If you'd like to find out more about those courses, please also go there. Yin Yin, do you have anything else to add in regards to that announcement on follow-up from participants who might want to just find out more about some of our courses at Help University? Yin Yin?
Yeah, I will just end the session by thanking everyone for joining this session. Slides of the talk will be provided to our attendees at the end of the workshop. Now, I would just like to add on to Dr. Jerry about our course counseling session. We'll be having 3 breakout sessions available to all the attendees. Now, the first room breakout will be for Help Academy University of London programs. The second session will be for University of Derby programs. And the third breakout room will be for Help University programs like psychology, education, business program, IT, and even more. So these are for breakout room sessions for the attendees who would like course counselings. So our marketing team will be in the breakout room to assist anyone who would like to have any questions you would like to know. We'll be posting the links on the chat room. The links will be available on the chat room right now. Once again, thank you to everyone for joining our session, and thank you to our speakers and moderators as well for providing this fascinating talk. Now, see you next at our workshop, which is scheduled at 2:30 p.m. The topic is continuous professional development for teachers. The link will be posted up and as well on the chat group. Take care, everyone.
Can I request everyone to unmute their mics, and if you want to unmute your videos also, and just join me in giving a round of applause to our wonderful 3 speakers, Jamie, Dr. Soon, and Paul. Can we do that, please? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
For the usual webinars that we just log out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
One more session.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so now we're gonna do the three-quarter turns, yeah? Like,